and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who's joining me in a Twitter embargo because we haven't seen Game of Thrones. It's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. We'll see how long it lasts. We have a tendency to, when we're bored or if there's a half second of silence, we'll go to the Twitter app. We have to avoid that at all costs.
Right? It's weirdly habitual, right? Yep. I've been checking Twitter and then stopping myself because I saw one, I think it was some sort
silence.
of
Silence right now. I don't want to hear it.
#GOT. Yeah. So something big happened. We don't know what it is.
It's like you're already trying to spoil it right now.
I don't know what it was. But we are here. The reason we're not watching Game of Thrones, we are here to do English Premier League 2017 N-18 preview.
Yep.
Very specific predictions.
We are indeed.
So, Taylor, how about you explain very specific predictions? What is this thing that we do?
Sure. It started off, you said do. It started off as a way to preview the 2014 World Cup, I believe, and it's basically a way to just sit, rather than just go, in this case, rather than say, Arsenal are going to get second or third, or, Burnley, I'm going to say they're 15th. It's a very kind of abstract way to go about predicting things and previewing the season. So instead what we try to do is look at the team, look at what they've done, and say what specifically we think is going to happen, what this player is going to do, what this manager is going to do, little things like that along the way.
So it's small picture instead of big picture.
That's the goal.
What's so exciting about picking a top four who's going to make the Champions League? It's more important to think about what players on those teams will do and why.
Yeah.
Because we drill down into the details, right? Not just Man United have strengthened, they'll win the league.
Occasionally. We've got some weird predictions in there as well. So it balances out. And what we've got this time is that I've gone through and listened to the ones from last season. So when we get to each team, so you're going to start us off with Arsenal, I believe, which is actually different than the way we did it last year. We started with AFC Bournemouth last year.
That was just a fight I wasn't prepared to have, even though you were wrong.
I was right. I think I said every source I've seen said that AFC Bournemouth are listed first, and you said, what do you mean every single source? And I said, the two places I looked. So this time we're going to start with...
Both of them Bournemouth publications.
Correct. We're going to start with Arsenal, and I guess I could jump into it right now if you'd like.
Well, just to let people know, this is part one. So this is the first 10 teams alphabetically, starting with Arsenal FC, as we should, and going through to Liverpool FC.
I heard that.
So first 10.
Sure. Last season, you were curious if it was going to be Arsene Wenger's final year. That was
so I did the Arsenal prediction.
Yes, you did. And you were very up on Theo Walcott. You said he was going to start as the out-and-out striker. You had to amend that on the second preview. But your prediction was that he would outscore Olivier Giroud, which he did. Unfortunately, you said to be Arsenal's top scorer. So I'm going to give you a half point here because he did outscore Olivier Giroud, but Alexis Sanchez, obviously the top scorer last season.
What happened is Alexis Sanchez is the one that played centre-forward, kind of unexpectedly. I think Arsenal fans knew when I did the preview. Yeah. I was wrong already at that point.
But it was interesting because we both talked a lot about Sanchez and Ozil and how they're such creative, exciting players, but we didn't really look at him as being that goal scorer, and it seems like he is very much the goal scorer for Arsenal.
Yeah.
At least according to me, the layman. I haven't done the previewing.
So this year with Arsenal, it's actually a scoring prediction again.
Ooh.
It's their new guy, Alexandre Lacazette.
Yep.
I won't subject you to any pun runs. That was all in the goal mouth.
Thank you.
A couple of months ago. I predict Alexandre Lacazette will score at least 20 goals this season.
In the Premier League.
In the Premier League. And there will be one high-profile quote calling him the new Thierry Henry.
Okay. Yeah. Is that just because he's French and playing for Arsenal and scoring goals?
Yes, and yes. But there's also a certain similarity in style in that sort of... You remember Henry always used to sort of accelerate in behind the defence and then would do that sort of bending shot around into the far post.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? It would bend around the keeper and back inside. I've seen some Lacazette playing for Lyon highlights. He does a lot of that. He also has a pretty big repertoire. You know what I mean? Like a lot of dribbling, a lot of tight turns, a lot of good touches. He almost scored in the Community Shield. He had a 1-2 with Danny Welbeck and did that bending shot, hit the post, bounced back out. But I really feel like big Arsenal signing, right? £52 million is what they paid for him. The only times Arsene Wenger really spends big money, it's guys like Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil. So even though this kind of went, not under the radar, but it wasn't like the blockbuster signing of the season, right? Because originally they were in for Mbappe. I honestly think Alexandre Lacazette is going to be sort of the big star for Arsenal this year and will score 20 goals in the Premier League.
All right.
Okay.
So, a couple questions there.
Yeah.
First of all, do you have any concern about him never having played in the Premier League? Because that is usually the criticism of a player coming in, especially a goal scorer coming in.
Neither had Alexis or Mesut Ozil.
Yes.
Right?
There you go.
So I'm kind of putting him on that level.
Okay.
All right.
So speaking of Alexis, what are your thoughts there? Do you think it's still going to be his team this season? Or do you think another team will be his team?
I mean, if he's playing for them, it's his team, as in he'll boss it. And I think him and Lacazette will be a great sort of partnership across the front.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Because if he does stay, let's go with if he stays, because he was kind of like the main man. We saw him a lot of times. I don't mean this in a negative way, but we saw him a lot of times kind of being the furthest forward, kind of standing there, like waiting for the ball to come, and obviously moving, but like the furthest forward. When you have Lacazette in there, do you think he'll still do that, or will it be sort of a combination? One of them will drop, one of them will stay.
So what I understand is Arsenal, they've gone with a back three all through pre-season, right? They've gone 3-4-3. Alexis Sanchez has not been that involved because he got an extended vacation after playing in the Confederations Cup, right?
He's sick.
And then he was sick, which we're not quite sure how true that was. But I see a front three of Alexis Sanchez, Alexandre Lacazette, and Mesut Ozil.
Decent.
That is a front three. That's a high-quality front three. And then, like, if any of those are injured or even if they leave, then the guys coming in behind them are Theo Walcott, Danny Welbeck, Iwobi. So I've forgotten Iwobi's first name, but you know what I mean? Alex Iwobi. So there's a lot of quality up front for Arsenal. So I'm kind of excited for that front three. I think their back three will be fine. It was looking good towards the end of last season. The wing-backs look good, right? It's Oxlade-Chamberlain, maybe. It's Bellerin, maybe. It's the new guy. I always have trouble pronouncing his name, but I believe it's Siad Kolasinac. Big guy, scored a header in the Community Shield, so it gives them a bit of extra strength. The only worry for me is central midfield.
Okay.
So it looks like Santi Cazorla might be a while coming back. There's a long-running thing of maybe he's never going to be fully fit again. I think he's such an important central midfielder. Aaron Ramsey, I don't think is fit to start the season.
Correct.
Granit Xhaka had a terrible clearance in the Community Shield, which suggests maybe his season won't be off to a good start. And your other guys are El Neni, Jack Wilshere, not fit, and Coquelin. So my other mini prediction is that Arsenal will go out and sign a midfielder in January. Or if they don't, someone will say that they should.
So you say January, not before the window closes in August?
No, I don't think. Unless they're not linked with anyone right now, right? There's no big Arsenal rumour.
I mean, other than, I think they're still sort of peripherally linked with Kylian Mbappe until he signs for PSG or Real Madrid.
But no central midfielder is what I'm saying.
I don't think so. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, and then my final prediction, I got one more, is I think Arsenal might win the Europa League.
Ooh,
because the pressures, when it's Arsenal in the Champions League, there seems to be a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I kind of think they might just take the Europa League easy, not feel too stressed out about it, and suddenly, kind of like Man United, suddenly they'll just find themselves in the semi-final and be like, oh, okay,
hey,
we'll win this then.
They had to struggle to get
But that's
there?
what they didn't, though, right? There was no pressure on the Europa League until they were already pretty deep into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so my final question then about Arsenal, because you seem very unconcerned about their defense, especially the center of that defense, which surprises me because last season they were like, when you did your prediction, you were a little bit worried that they were in a bit of a defensive crisis. And then I think even then you were like, I'm not sure if Per Mertesacker how much more he has left.
Yeah.
He's still there. It seems like he started the Community Shield and got a bloody head. But like I believe Laurent Koscielny is suspended for the first 2 weeks of the season.
He is, yeah.
So
the season's longer than 2 weeks.
True. So then who do you think it would be then?
Mustafi is there. Monreal plays in the back as well. So they got, they got
Gabriel
guys
as well, right?
Yeah, Gabriel I think is not starting the season, maybe also with an injury. And I think they have, I'm not sure if Holding's been sent out on loan. If not, he's still available as well. So they've got bodies.
So you got depth.
They've got bodies.
There we go. All right. I was confused. I was concerned.
So the other thing is, the one thing that I saw in a few previews that I was really excited by is, so Alexis Sanchez, Mesut Ozil, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain are all in the final years of their contract, right? They have 12 months to go. They could go for free at the end of the season. In the past, Wenger would have panicked if they hadn't signed a contract by now and probably would have sold them, like just to not have that headache, and because he's building long term, right? The thing I read a couple times is that you can interpret this as Wenger thinking short term. He's thinking, I don't need to get some money from them now. If they leave next year, fine, I'll have them for 12 months. I'd rather have Alexis Sanchez for 12 months than money now.
But is that him thinking short term, as in maybe I'll leave at the end of the season as well?
Well, he has a 2-year contract to go. Okay. But maybe then he thinks he'll rebuild if he has to next year. But at least in terms of this year, it's not a long-term project. It's I get Alexis Sanchez for one more season.
Man,
you know what I'm saying?
It would be it'd be an interesting thought experiment to talk to Arsenal fans about. Would you take winning the Premier League this season if at the end of this season they win the Premier League and then Wenger retires, Sanchez leaves, Ozil leaves, and suddenly it's like a complete rebuilding project? Because as a Man United fan, I would say it's worth winning the title, but then it gets a little frustrating.
It's the one donut now or 2 donuts later. You remember that thing that they have kids do to see marshmallows, see which kids have sort of long-term planning, impulse control kind of thing as well. But in this case, you're talking about a kid who hasn't had a marshmallow in 10 years.
Yeah. I'll also add that as much as I like to think that I would have been the kid who waits, I would have before they got done giving me the instructions, I would have eaten that marshmallow.
Yeah. But the thing with you, I think you would have just taken all the marshmallows that they were going to give you later anyway.
That's probably true.
You just reach into the bag.
Yeah, I just steal the bag, yeah.
So there's your Arsenal.
I'm a thief too, thanks.
Arsenal preview, an opportunist, I would say. about it. Arsenal preview and predictions. My big one is that Lacazette will score at least 20 goals, and someone somewhere, either another manager or like, I don't know, Jamie Carragher on TV or something, will call him the new Thierry Henry.
There we are.
Actually, Ian Wright will call him the new Thierry Henry.
All right, that makes sense. Moving on to AFC Bournemouth.
Some people call them.
I previewed them last season. My prediction was correct, and it's a bummer.
What is it?
I predicted Emerson Hyndman. In retrospect, it is hilarious that we both thought that this might be controversial. Emerson Hyndman will start fewer than 8 games and will feature in fewer than 16 games for Bournemouth last season.
Ooh.
And neither one of us ever thought he was going out on loan, even when we both said, oh yeah, he's way down the depth chart. He probably won't get many minutes. We both I think maybe just hoped that he would stay and like fight his way into a spot.
Yeah.
I think we had that with a couple
in the
people.
end, he went to Rangers, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then got injured, and now I think remains injured. So no word yet on how much he's going to be involved, and maybe if he does go out on loan.
Okay.
So,
how does the rest of Bournemouth look then?
I get
the
that.
non-Emerson Hyndman part of Bournemouth.
Yeah. He won't come up much more in my preview. And I'm actually pretty optimistic about Bournemouth.
All right.
Because there are 2 clubs early on in my previews, Bournemouth and Burnley, both of whom I think have taken West Brom's title of the Yo-Yo Club, but I think they've done it in a good way. So I'll start with Bournemouth in that they've gone from that team that like maybe they seemed like they were going to go up and down, they seemed like they were going to be there. It seems like now they've kind of established that foothold, and I think they're going to be around long term. And I think a big part of that is
Define long term in the Premier League.
Well, long enough that they'll
More than
like Eddie Howe will probably get another job, and I mean at least I think that if you look at most of the previews, this is the best way I can explain it. Look at most of the previews about them. It's all like, I bet they'll be 14th or 15th. It's a lot of, they're probably not going to struggle with relegation.
Right.
And so I think that that's where they find themselves, but that obviously means they can't be complacent.
Right.
So they have not been complacent this
Well,
season. They've signed a guy, I think you might have heard of him. His name is Jermaine Defoe. I don't know if you know who that is.
Defoe.
Yeah. Just kidding. If you're just finding us, I promise we know who he is. So Jermaine Defoe has signed for Bournemouth. I did not realize because he's been in a lot of places.
He's been to Bournemouth, right?
He's been to Bournemouth before.
His early loan spells were at Bournemouth. Yeah, that's because I believe Harry Redknapp was at Bournemouth before he was at West Ham. So he had connections, so he could always send players on loan to Bournemouth those early West Ham days.
So this won't seem like that much of like another controversial prediction here, but I'm going to say that between Jermaine Defoe and Josh King, they will have a combined 30 Premier League goals this season. So Jermaine Defoe had 15 for a terrible Sunderland team last season.
So he'll have 29 for Bournemouth.
and Josh King had 16 last season.
Okay.
And so I know that
you did the math.
Yeah, it was 31. I was like, 30. But more so, it's Jermaine Defoe who's a little bit older, is going to have to adjust to a new situation. I'm going to say a better situation, but it's also Jermaine Defoe who's trying to make that England squad. He's still hoping to make that 2018
World Cup. Right?
So I think you're going to see him sort of like, I was going to say like Sanchez and Ozil are in contract years, but that's really like an NBA thing where you're like trying to get that new contract.
Yeah, contract year for a player like those is more like, I'm going to run it down and I'm going to move on.
Exactly, no matter what happens. Here, it's Jermaine Defoe. Like, he has got something to prove. Like, he wants to show.
Oh, so it is like an NBA contract.
Yeah,
I get it.
So that's where I think he's going to be a little bit the Jermaine Defoe of old, and I think that's pretty exciting, especially if you're a Bournemouth fan. So I say the two of them will combine for 30 or more Premier League goals.
Okay, I like it. Anything else to tell me on Bournemouth?
Yeah, a couple things.
Okay.
So they've also done some smart things away from those attackers. They brought in Asmir Begovic, who will be their starting goalkeeper. He replaces Artur Boric, who's a little inconsistent at times, is the best way I'm going to put that.
What's Begovic's policy to Corn?
I believe he likes it or he hates it. I can't remember, but I know it's in all capitals. So there's that. Shout out to Brooks. And then Nathan Ake. We talked about him. Club record £20 million fee for him.
Right.
He'll be in the heart of their defense.
But they did a try before you buy, right? They loaned him last season.
Yes. Yeah. And then I saw one person on Reddit who was like summarizing what their expectations are for the season. I thought this was worth noting. They said Steve Cook basically is our defense on his own. So you can dismiss all of the above positivity. If he does get a long-term injury, we'd immediately find ourselves in real trouble. So I think Bournemouth will be hoping that Jermaine Defoe and Josh King find that balance, that Asmir Begovic performs well, and that Steve Cook does not get hurt.
Fair enough. Moving on to Brighton and Hove Albion. We're sticking on the south coast of England with Brighton, newly promoted. I'm going to predict that Anthony Knockett will win Goal of the Month.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So there are not 12 because it's not 12 months, right? For every month of the Premier League season, there's a Goal of the Month that you can vote on. And it's usually, obviously, a sort of mind-blowing goal, right? I watched some Anthony Knockett highlights playing for Brighton last season. He was Championship Player of the Year. This is 25-year-old French winger. He is dribbly, he shoots from distance, and he also scores some acrobatic goals. So from one of those few pots, he's going to pull out something that blows people's minds and wins him Goal of the Month.
His name again, I'm sorry.
Anthony Knockert.
Okay.
So it's spelled Knockkaert.
All right.
French. So he was with Leicester, and then the season they won the league, he got sold the year before for Riyad Mahrez, went to somewhere in Belgium, I think it was Anderlecht or Standard Liège, but then got picked up again.
Safe bets. Or Bruges.
But got picked up again by Brighton last season. And was sort of...
I know a lot of Belgian clubs. All right, sorry.
And manager Chris Hughton sort of said to him, all right, you're our guy.
Yeah.
Left-footed, on the right wing, but you just go for it, my friend. You go for it. So they really supported him, let him express himself. And he scored, I think, 15 goals, 8 assists. Great goals. Some from distance, some like Zlatan-ish, like, flicking behind his head type thing. And he has really tight cuts and swerves. That's why I'm thinking that at least one goal he scores for Brighton is going to be one of those like, whoa, who's this guy? Goal of the month kind of thing.
You made me sad. I miss Zlatan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But now I've got Anthony Knockert?
Yes.
Your accent throws me for a second there.
Here's another good... This tells you a lot about Brighton and about Chris Hughton, the manager. So you remember Chris Hughton as someone who gets teams promoted but then really struggles in the Premier League, right? Remember him being sacked by Newcastle and I think by Norwich as well.
Also that.
So after Knockert joined Brighton, his father passed away, right? And he had to go back to France for the funeral. Chris Hughton organised for the majority of the first team and Chris Hughton himself to go to the funeral with Knockert. And I think it was kind of a surprise. It was like a, buddy, we're all here for you kind of thing. And I think there's a lot of talk at the time that really symbolised the approach at Brighton of the sort of team spirit, everybody supporting each other kind of thing.
So are they more in the, we'll talk about them in a second, but like the Burnley model of it's like a club where everybody believes the manager believes in what they're doing?
Yeah.
And then...
At least now it is.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes sense. But then, so what should we expect from Brighton then when they come into the Premier League?
Honestly, it's really hard to say, right? When you look at the quality of player on paper, you would say they're probably going to get relegated. But I think I've learned over the past few seasons to not say that, because you would have said that when Burnley first came up, right? You would have said it when Bournemouth
everyone said
up.
it when Burnley came up.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely refusing this time to say it. I'm probably jinxing them in doing so. But I'm a real believer now in the clubs that come up and don't go out and spend crazy money. Like they're not like, oh, we're in the Premier League, we've got to go and buy. Buying Jermaine Defoe when Bournemouth first came up, that would have been sign of a panic signing to me.
I think so.
It makes more sense right now. But you get what I'm saying? And there are none of those signings for Brighton. So I'm kind of optimistic for them. And I think Knockert will be a good guy to watch as well.
There we are. All right, well, then we move to Burnley, the aforementioned, on several occasions.
Sorry, bonus prediction. There will be a headline, it's a Knockert.
Okay. I knew you'd get one in somewhere. I just wasn't really ready for it this early in the show. So Burnley. And I think maybe that's like Burnley should be what Brighton are looking to do, which is Burnley were that yo-yo club. They're more so that kind of West Brom yo-yo.
Yo-yo club means you get relegated, you get promoted, then you get relegated, then you get promoted, then you get relegated.
Yeah,
but Burnley didn't do that, right? Didn't they just stay up?
They got promoted, then relegated, then promoted again, and then everybody thought they would be relegated again, and now here they are.
So they did yo-yo.
Yes, and maybe there was another one in there. I know they were promoted under Owen Coyle, and then went right back down.
Of course, okay, yeah.
So they're another one who I think have done the smart thing, as you were talking about with Bournemouth and what Brighton are trying to do now, which is you kind of know, we're not gonna make that much money. We're not gonna have monstrous owners come in or monstrous amounts of money come in. So we're going to it can be both. You never know. Yeah. So instead, they've done really smart things. There was a story that I read about that I forget who it was coming back to Burnley, and it was basically that he had played there before when he was 15, and he was saying that we used to change in the cars because the locker rooms were so disgusting. But now they've reinvested that Premier League money, and now they're trying to get really state of the art training facilities, and they're trying to kind of do the smart thing and grow the club into, even if they're not in the Premier League, they're a sustainable model that they can continue to grow.
So you don't blow it all on transfers, you spend it on infrastructure.
So you look at what Burnley have done this season, the biggest thing they've done is sort of a negative. It's that they sold Michael Keane.
Yes.
That's going to be difficult for them. Now, if you talk to Burnley supporters, they are big believers in James Tarkowski. They would say that as far back as when Burnley were in the Championship, they knew Michael Keane was going to be a source of interest. So they started grooming Tarkowski to replace Keane. That's the optimistic approach, I think, but we shall see what happens.
Do you know how old he is?
I do not. I think he's early 20s, but I could be wrong.
So young for a centre-back, but not sort of 17.
Yes, yes. So he will be very important in my prediction, which is that, and then I'll explain more about it. It's that Burnley will stay up. I think a lot of people have them pegged for the 18 to 17 spot in the table, but they will get fewer points at home than they did last season, And that is an interesting thing, because last season they got 40 points. They got 33 of those at home. Okay. They were very bad on the road. But a big part of that was that a lot of clubs thought, it's Burnley, so we can kind of go there and do them, as I believe Roy Keane would say. But I think the clubs kind of overestimated them, and so I think clubs will maybe go there with a bit more respect. But because they were so bad on the road and they have strengthened a little bit through the overall squad, I wonder if maybe
it'll even out
stronger.
maybe.
Yeah,
that's
my prediction.
Okay.
So a couple more quick points and then we'll move it on. I got my point for Burnley from last season because I predicted that Sean Dyche would be the media darling of the season.
Yeah,
and he kind of got that reputation.
Yeah.
And I'll also say that, again, going back to their kind of sustainable model, you look at who they signed. They signed players like John Walters and Phil Bardsley, Jack Cork from Swansea. So it's very like stable, reliable Premier League midfielders through the middle. It's going to keep that squad strong, and they're going to be just what they were last season, which is difficult to beat, but never that exciting to watch.
I say relegation. All right, up next, Chelsea. What did we predict last year for Chelsea?
For last year for Chelsea, that they would not play a back three is what you said.
That was my prediction?
Yes, they would go with the back four, but your actual prediction, and I tried to talk you out of it at the time, you wouldn't hear it. Your literal prediction was that the cameras would show John Terry and Gary Cahill sleeping in a game.
Because they had Matic and N'Golo Kante in front of them, and they'd be so well protected. Mm-hmm. So it'd be like a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 with a heavily protected back four because of that.
Yeah, and actually, I didn't give you the point. I'll give you a half point. I'll give you a half point for that because you were correct that Matic and Kante were so strong together that really, and yes, it did necessitate a change. They did go to the back three. I think I made a joke at the time of like, maybe Conte will spring it on us because he won't have other options. Yeah. And that's pretty much what happened.
So we talked about, I actually re-listened to a bit of how Chelsea, 10 Reasons Chelsea won the Premier League show, and they did start the season in a back four and didn't switch to that back three until later. And I think when I made that prediction, it was because everybody was saying, oh, Chelsea, how are they going to play back three? Like John Terry's too slow and all this sort of stuff. And I think I'd seen in pre-season, they were sticking with the back four. Yeah. So they didn't switch until later in the season, and then when John Terry was told, maybe just watch from the side.
When he retired, I believe I said.
Yeah, he kind of retired mid-season.
/ eventually went to play for Aston Villa.
Big point for this season. Yeah. I understand John Terry didn't play a lot last season, but he was still there. He was still present all the time, and he's a big personality. And I honestly think that's a big presence that they'll be missing this year.
I'm sure John Terry made that argument.
Look, I really believe that. Because he was a great sort of, I don't know what the phrase is, but like a really good... a good captain in that way, that he didn't agitate for playing time after he was dropped. Like he wasn't causing trouble. He just supported the team from the bench and was happy with his role.
Yeah, I think Wayne Bridge would like a word with you.
Well, no, I understand. I don't think he's a good person. Yeah. Let's put it that way. But I do think he was a good captain for Chelsea last year because he took it on the chin and just supported the team. That personality will be missing. It's like losing an assistant coach who was important.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree with you, especially because they've announced that Gary Cahill is the new full-time replacement. And I do wonder if there's an element of like English center back, been here for a while. Maybe it'll just translate.
Okay, so here's my specific prediction for this year, which may sound ridiculous after what I did last year, but they will change formation after a tough start to the season.
You think?
Yeah, so much of how we talked about Chelsea winning the league was that 3-4-3, right? And it was so effective. But obviously throughout the season, other teams started copying, right? And now, I did the Arsenal preview earlier. They've pretty much switched to that shape. I think every other team has kind of had a chance to study that formation, think about how it works, implement it themselves. So I don't think it will be any longer that Chelsea are the best at that shape and have it before anybody else. You know what I'm saying? So I think that kind of element of surprise has gone. I also think we praised them for the way Antonio Conte handled the Diego Costa situation, which was like to persuade him to stay through the end of the season, then get replacements in, then ship him out. He's still there.
He is.
Diego Costa is still there. Batshuayi apparently has not been that impressive in pre-season. Morata came off the bench in the Community Shield, kept Arsenal on side for their equaliser. If you watch that, this actually hasn't been talked about much, but he's the one that drops the defensive line and keeps them on side for Arsenal to score the equaliser. Misses his penalty kick. Right? I think he's in for a rough start to life in the Premier League. So Eden Hazard is, I think, still coming back from ankle surgery. Bakayoko had some surgery. He's not back yet. Matic is gone. I really think Chelsea are going to have a rough start to the season.
So that's interesting.
And Antonio Conte also isn't just the back three guy. He's the many, many shapes guy.
Yeah.
He'll come up with a new plan after a few months, I believe.
And he'll do it angrily.
Maybe.
It's also worth noting there that listening back to last season's preview show, I think it was in between part 1 and part 2 that Paul Pogba officially signed for Manchester United, and it felt sort of like, oh wow, everything had yet to happen because of the Euros, because of the Copa America had kind of pushed everything back. So I kind of looked at this and thought oh no, things are a bit more stable, kind of a lot of the sidings are bedded in. But you're absolutely right. The more you look at it and the more you peel things back and look at it from different angles, it is sort of like, oh wait, hold on, he's still there and they haven't filled that spot. And that's pretty much the case with every team in the Premier League. Yeah. So there's still a lot to sort out.
It is.
And I think Chelsea definitely have some wrinkles.
We're doing our predictions and there's still about a month to go, just under a month to go in the transfer window. There's still business to be done.
Yes.
The one thing I would say though, Chelsea, apart from the Costa thing, they've kind of did quite a lot of it quite early.
Yep.
And I'm not convinced they're better off than they were last season.
So
they've replaced, say, Costa with Morata. I'm not sure. They've replaced Matic with Bakayoko. That could go either way, because I was still a reasonable admirer of Matic last season. I still think he has several more good seasons in him.
I would hope so.
Enough that Mourinho was super excited about him, right? And they brought Rudiger into that back three, but they've let Zuma has gone, they let Ake go, John Terry's retired. So I'm not convinced that
Miazga sent out. Who would have seen that coming?
Christensen's back, right? And just Christensen. But I'm not convinced that they've necessarily strengthened so much as sort of just replaced a few pieces. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And maybe their squad isn't that deep at this point either.
But they still have N'Golo Kante, and that's really all you need.
kind of is, right? So my prediction is that Antonio Conte will switch the formation at some point. My other prediction is that finally N'Golo Kante will not win the Premier League.
Ooh, all right. So we'll have a new champion this season? All right, well, we can talk more about who that champion might be in just a moment. But first, we have an ad on today's show, Mr. Grove.
We do, and that ad is for Roughneck Scarves.
I enjoy the frantic flip through the papers.
Long-time sponsor of the show, Roughneck Scarves. You know we love them. They support us. You should support them.
You should indeed. They're the official scarf providers of Major League Soccer, USL,
yes,
NCAA.
Yep, you're missing a big one.
The U.S. National team, or U.S. Soccer.
The U.S. national teams. Yeah, all U.S. Soccer national teams. The official scarves are Roughneck Scarves. But you can also create your own custom scarves. If you're doing like a fundraiser for your team, like, say, Empire SC, shout out to them. If you're doing a fundraiser for your team, you can create a custom scarf and then sell it. We had the idea, if you were creating a custom scarf for the new Premier League season, what would it look like? We put this out on Twitter. We got lots of answers. We had lots of suggestions of dollar bills and other currency things. Plus, we had Brendan Sissombath suggested the scarf should read Premier League 2017-18 season.
All right.
But there were several other extra creative suggestions.
Am I missing something? Is it not 2017?
I can't tell if he's being extra funny or just really literal.
I mean,
or both. Maybe.
Either one, or could be both. Yeah.
Brendan, let us know. But what are some of the other suggestions? We've picked 5 that we want to read out.
Ryan Altenbach says the Tinder Flame logo underneath Arsene Wenger's chair.
I kind of like that because it combines a Man United thing and an Arsenal thing.
But why does the Tinder logo go under Arsene's chair?
He's on the hot seat.
There it is. Thank you. Okay.
Really?
I need you to put these things together for me. Because is he? Wenger's not on the hot seat.
He's not really. Well, he sort of is with the fans, but he's definitely going to see out that 2-year contract, right? I mean, the only way he doesn't is if he decides he doesn't want to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Unless they somehow finish bottom.
Yep.
Matt, which isn't happening, obviously. Matt Foley says, all the foreign currencies that influence the league, or all the flags from the countries that players are from. I like the second one better. I kind of like a multinational Premier League scarf.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in there. So that might be difficult. Although
Some Americans.
Not for Burnley. I think 19 of their 24 players come from the British Isles.
Is that right?
So they're pretty localized, yeah. Christopher Klein, it would just be the league's TV deal contract printed out in scarf form.
That's pretty good. Brad Payne.
Which I think is just different symbols for money over and over and over again. That's the entire contract.
Brad Payne says, Huddersfield on one side and an American flag on the other, baby. And he followed up by saying, you don't have to say baby on the ad break, though that might be awkward. Yeah. We did anyway.
You went for it anyway.
We did anyway.
Wait,
can we talk about why that is, though? Huddersfield, Danny Williams, and possibly the coach, David Wagner.
See, we've had this conversation with our friend Pav, who's been on the show. He's a Huddersfield fan. I'm just saying, if you've got caps on the U.S. men's national team, then you're an American. That's how it works.
I'm not sure Wagner cares that much.
I don't care. I care. He's an American.
Okay.
Deal with it. Sean, final one, says 2/3 length is included at normal price. 1/3 costs $49.99 per season. What could that possibly be referencing, Daryl Grove?
So people are either laughing really hard right now or they're very, very confused.
Yes.
That's to do with the way that NBC Sports is setting up the Premier League viewing options this season.
So kind of them.
It's not all on NBC Sports. There is sort of an extra tier that you have to pay for a third of the matches, $50 per season. We'll talk about that later. Right?
We will indeed. The good news is that if you choose to buy a Roughneck scarf, there are no hidden fees at the end. It's not like once you get the scarf, it also comes with a complimentary invoice for an additional $49.99. Nope, it's a pretty standard fee, and that standard fee can be discounted by using the Total Soccer Show promo code at checkout. So the Total Soccer Show promo code is, perfectly, Total Soccer Show. Yep. All one word, all uppercase. You get 20% off any scarf you can find at roughneckscarves.com. 20% off any scarf you can find at roughneckscarves.com. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for being long-time sponsors of the Total Soccer Show. Indeed. So, with that said, let's get back to our Premier League preview. We move on to Crystal Palace, and I have to say, this was probably the worst prediction either one of us made. I mean, it's not that hilariously bad, but it was me. Last season? And I was really excited about Crystal Palace last season because I thought that they had got to figure it out. They had made a lot of big signings. They had Alan Pardew in there. How could that possibly go wrong? It seemed like he had figured things out. things did not go well, especially with my prediction, which was that Andros Townsend will feature in the best buy of the season list, despite being their record signing. That was at the time. They've since broken that twice.
Okay.
Andros Townsend has made several lists, including number 7 on 442's worst signings of the summer, and number 9 on TalkSport's biggest flops of the summer in 2016.
So Bizarro World, right?
Yeah, so there's that. So yeah, I wasn't really correct on that one.
Oh, no.
And I'm not sure how much Andros Townsend is going to factor into this current Crystal Palace team, but then again, I'm not sure who's going to factor in where with this Crystal Palace team.
Why so confused?
Because there have been a few ins, there have been a decent amount of outs, and the biggest in that has come in is Frank de Boer, who's now the manager. And he's going to be going with, we think, a 3-4-3. And we don't know how that will fit in.
Everybody's doing it.
Yeah, they are. But the problem here is that, like, I think my favorite thing, I saw somebody try to do, like, the lineup for, like, what Crystal Palace will do, and it featured a new center back and a new goalkeeper in their starting 11. So that kind of tells you where things are with Crystal Palace, which feeds into my prediction, which is that they will be very busy in the next month. I will say that they will sign at least 3 players before the transfer window closes.
Okay, so I'm going to guess that So I forgot which one it is. Is it Ronald or Frank de Boer?
I had to check my notes. It's Frank.
Frank de Boer has taken over.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's going to be some Dutch signings.
Already has been one.
Yeah.
We've talked about it on the show, in fact, my friend.
Who's that?
Jaro Riederwald. The Ajax defender, the ball-playing defender. Yeah, we think... I keep saying we. The prevailing theory is that he would be one of the 3 center backs, probably on the left side as kind of like the more ball-playing center back, and then you have Scott Dunn in the middle. Then it's kind of a question mark as to who the other center back will be, so I think that will be one of the signings.
Oh, Scott Dann. I remember when Wolves signed Roger Johnson, and it went very, very, very badly.
I do remember that.
Yeah, well, his centre back partner the year before was Scott Dann, and it turns out a lot of the good work that was done at Birmingham City, I think, at the time, was Scott Dann, and we should have signed him and not Roger Johnson.
I think one of our longest-running traditions with this like Premier League preview show is there being a moment where you get sad about Wolves. There was one last season. I can't remember who it was.
It wasn't this weekend. I did the Wolves TV thing where I paid $7 to watch them. Watched them beat Middlesbrough 1-0.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and worth noting here that we have a bet about Wolves.
Do we?
It's a $10 bet. I say they get promoted. You say they will not.
Oh, well, gambling is illegal in the state of Virginia.
Maybe
or
it's
the Commonwealth of Virginia. Hi, Laura.
A gentleman's wager?
A gentleman's wager,
agreement?
Yeah.
Right. So, also with Crystal Palace, Ruben Loftus-Cheek has come in from Chelsea on loan.
All right.
So, he might be on the right side of that in the 3-4-3 with Benteke and then Wilfried Zaha as your attackers. But there's question marks about how Benteke will do with that formation change. There's no real backup to Christian Benteke, so they're going to have to sign a striker there. They want someone to challenge.
I like that phrase. There's no backup for Christian Benteke. He's irreplaceable.
I think he agrees with that too.
Aston Villa agree with that. They got relegated after selling him.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Then there's going to be they're going to want someone to challenge Ruben Loftus-Cheek or potentially start in that right wing spot. So there's 3 more spots that maybe they'll need to sign somebody. And then the other big one is a new goalkeeper, as I said.
Wait, Ruben Loftus-Cheek's playing right wing?
Yes.
Isn't he a central midfielder?
That's the prevailing theory, is that he'll be up top for them because, again, it's basically they haven't quite filled that role if this is what they choose to do, and they're going to have to kind of shove some square pegs into round holes, I think, is the plan. The final point there would be that goalkeeper remains a bit of a concern for Palace.
You need one of those.
Yeah, you do.
You have to
I was so excited because they brought in Steve Mandanda last season. The French number 2, I thought he'd be a big deal. Instead, he's already left. So that's not great.
Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah. So that means Wayne Hennessy is their starting goalkeeper with Julian Speroni, the 38-year-old Argentinian who's been with the club since 2004.
Yes.
Those are your 2 goalkeeping options. Only 2 there.
Do you think every Premier League club has one of those guys? You're just like, he's still there.
Yeah, right? He's alive? So I think they're definitely going to sign another goalkeeper. Whether or not that's like a starter or maybe a capable backup remains to be seen. But new goalkeeper, another center back, kind of like a wide, like outside right center back, another wide attacker, and a backup striker. So that's 4 spots that I think they're going to need to fill before the season begins.
So recap the specific prediction again.
It's that Palace will be very busy in the next month. They will sign at least 4 players.
At least
I might have said
players.
3 to start this, but now I've maybe moved it to 4.
Okay.
Why not?
We'll be counting.
Yeah.
We'll be counting. Okay. Up next, it's the Toffees, Everton. What did we say about Everton last season?
Oh, boy,
I know what I did.
You did because it made me curse when I listened to it today.
Can I guess? It is that Ross Barkley would up his game because Ronald Koeman would ask him to do certain things.
He had too much freedom, is what you said.
And the way that he would get him to play is to be more aggressive, like tackling and stuff. And he would average more than 1 intercept. Ross Barkley would average more than 1 interception per game under Ronald Koeman.
He did not.
But that
by
was my
some
prediction.
margin, it was at least 1
average?
interception per game. He averaged. I don't know what he averaged, but he got 10 total in the season. So not 1 per game is the answer.
What if he only played 10 games?
Well, and for a second, I thought you smashed it because he had 61. And I was like, oh, wow, 61. He did really, really well. That was for his entire career. He had 10 last season. 10 last season, 17 the year before. So it was a bit of a downturn for him, not just in terms of interceptions.
And yeah, to bring us to the present, Ross Barkley made it clear that he wanted to leave in the summer. And I think he kind of expected the bids to be flying in all through May, June and July, or June and July. He's still there. Ross Barkley is still there. Ronald Koeman says, yeah, he's not involved with my first team plans because he wants to leave. If he changes his mind, then yeah, he can try and work his way back in the team. But right now, he's up for sale. And there's always a rumour being like, oh, maybe Man United will come in for him, maybe Tottenham will come in with him. The price tag is £40 million.
Yep.
And I love the guy, but I don't think he's worth that. So I don't think Spurs or United are going to pay that unless they're kind of struggling towards the end of the transfer window.
Yeah.
It'll be like a roster spot is open and they just need to fill it and the price goes down. Maybe then a big club buys him.
Yeah. But you're right. He's on that list. Diego Costa's on there as well. Riyad Mahrez, who I'm guessing we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
Also on there as players who it's like, wait, what? Like, they haven't moved yet? How's that possible?
Well, Leicester City want to keep Mahrez. We'll talk about that later.
Right.
I mean, Everton are not in any sort of panic about losing Ross Barkley. I think they'd be quite happy for him to go.
Common denominator with clubs that have players that either want a move or like have sort of said they're ready to leave. Daryl Grove is previewing them. That's all I'm saying. Daryl Grove is the common denominator here, folks. He's the problem.
Maybe I'll be the guy that helps them move.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are other things happening with Everton, or is it just Ross Barkley?
It's not all Ross Barkley. There's been all sorts going on. Obviously, the big thing is they lost Lukaku. They have not replaced him. If you are looking for a real deep Everton preview, we did a podcast with Matt Tomaszewicz of the Shin Guardian, and the most interesting thing to me that he said on that show was that it's not just about losing Lukaku and replacing him with Wayne Rooney. It's about how that affects the whole way that opposition teams approach Everton. Because he was saying that, because he watches a lot of Everton, obviously, Matt does, and he was saying that like teams were scared of Lukaku's pacing behind, but also scared of the way he would come deep and get the ball. And so it made defences like really sort of confused in multiple directions. Wayne Rooney playing centre forward, much more stationary, much less of a threat, and so it almost diminishes
and drops back, but not on the way that Lukaku would.
Right, yes, it diminishes, and not scary running in behind. So it diminishes the performances of everybody else because defences can be a bit more prepared.
Yeah, I enjoy that because I think when you said, like, you didn't suggest that. Like, I know you weren't saying, like, is Wayne Rooney the replacement? But you were sort of like, is he like going to be the temporary replacement in a different way? And as I recall, it made Tomaszewicz laugh. Like, you're asking me, is Wayne Rooney replacing Lukaku?
Yeah. So obviously he's not going to be a direct replacement, but I'm going in on this. I think Wayne Rooney's going to have a good season.
So you get to make the Wayne Rooney prediction this year.
Yes, I think Wayne Rooney's going to have a good season because he's at least going to be sort of more or less guaranteed to start, at least for the first part of the season. If he has a terrible, terrible run...
this is how it goes.
He'll get dropped.
So you talk yourself into the Wayne Rooney prediction.
I think Wayne Rooney is going to start in that front three, probably at centre forward to begin with. I'm saying Wayne Rooney's going to have what I'm going to call a double-double.
Okay.
10 goals,
10 assists.
10 assists for Wayne Rooney this season, which would be an uptick. Last year, literally 5 goals, 5 assists for Manchester United.
Do you remember the year before when I predicted that he would, I think, like score 20 goals, and then it was amended to just who will score more, Patrick Bamford or Wayne Rooney, and I won with, I don't think I didn't even get it. I think he didn't score a goal the entire second half of the season.
So listen to this. Wayne Rooney's goal return over the last 4 years. Last season, 5 goals. Season before, 8 goals. Season before that, 12 goals. Season before that, 17 goals. So
I'm noticing a trend.
Yeah,
and it's not a positive one.
That's going chronologically backwards. So if you run that forwards in,
If he's been around, though, it sounds really good.
Right. But I think we'll begin to see a climb up, and I think he'll get 10 goals, 10 assists, if only because there isn't any other striker there right now.
Right now is the key
word. But once again, we got to
word.
September. I really think like a manager giving him the full confidence. I really think there's a lot left in the tank. He's 31 years old. It's not like he's really, really done. I think there's a couple of really good years in there.
I'm not going to go so far as to say that he's got a couple good years, but I will say that I would put him in the same category as Jermaine Defoe, that he's got a point to prove. And it's not that he wants... I don't think Wayne Rooney is going to the World Cup, although who knows?
Wayne Rooney has said he's retiring after the 2018 World Cup. I would love for him to make the squad in a Clint Dempsey kind of way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess we'll see what happens this season. Because he's a very different player than Clint Dempsey.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, in all the ways that you could mean that.
I'm saying in just being in the squad, but then coming off the bench and contributing in some way. Yeah. And if anything, I feel like Rooney would be happier doing that than Dempsey is.
I like that I've just said that Jermaine Defoe is in contention to make the World Cup and Wayne Rooney is not. So that's not right. But I think...
I'd be surprised if they both go, put it that way.
Yeah, I'll say that. But I think he also probably... I mean, people are aware, or at least the rumors are, that Man United are paying part of his salary, his current like weekly wages, that he was allowed to go on a free. And I know that was sort of spun as, the club trying to do him a salad so he could stay in the Premier League. But I think you could just as easily say that was the club being like, we will pay his salary if you take him.
Because he's in a weird way, he's a problem, right? Not because he's trouble personally anymore. That hasn't been true for many years. But because he is a club legend, he's all-time top scorer, all that sort of stuff. And it's always a story. Like, is he going to play? Is he dropped? What are you going to do with him? And probably the easiest thing is to let him go somewhere else. Then you don't have to have that worry. And for him, I'll go back to, I think it's a great situation for him, back with the team he grew up with, and very likely in the starting 11 every week.
Right, but even with that, what I was saying is that, like, but even at United, if he has that down, because every season it can be like, but he's now the out-and-out striker, or now he's fitter than he was last season, or now he's more confident than he was last season. It's still, as soon as things maybe don't quite go right, the manager has Zlatan, or he has this other player who can come in, and it's like, maybe he'll just sit on the bench for a little bit. And I think it can become like a familiar pattern. And I think you move to Everton, now it's like, well, it's a new start. I want to prove to them that maybe they were wrong, even though we parted on good terms. I want to prove that I belong in that World Cup squad. And so maybe you see a little bit of that rejuvenation, a little bit of that sort of like directness and that certainty that we've seen from Wayne Rooney in years past, but not recent years.
So there we go. 10 goals, 10 assists, double-double. I also predict at some point he will get an England recall. Yeah. It doesn't mean he goes to the World Cup, but he'll at least be given a chance in an England shirt between now and next summer, and he'll either take it or he won't, but he'll get one more game. Fair?
Fair.
Okay, going to the younger end of the spectrum, I had a good look at Ademola Lookman. Do you know this guy? So I'd assumed that he was an
network.
Everton. Oh, yeah, of course. I'd assumed he was an Everton youth player. They actually bought him last January from Charlton. He's 19, plays for the England under-20s, and looks electric every time he gets the ball. So he'll play on the wing. I think Balassi is out for the start of the season. I know they have other players, right? I think they're going to sign Gylfi Sigurdsson. I know Kevin Morales is there. Aaron Lennon is back. Sandro's there. Tom Shapes is very excited about Sandro. But I think Ademola Lookman's going to get a chance, especially with Balassi not being around. So watch for him dribbling at people. I think he'll be in contention for Young Player of the Year.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. For just because like of what your conversation was with Tomaszewicz, because you think it was something specific?
From watching highlights. And because they paid good money for him. I think they paid like 8 million rising to 11 million for him last January. So it's not like there's more pressure in a way when you pay money for someone than when they come through the youth system, right? That's Ronald Koeman paid good money for Ademola Lookman, and that means that he has him in his plans at some point, right? Gave him 8 games at the end of last season, suggests that, a year later he's going to get more and more games. So I really think he'll make an impact.
I have a question for you about Everton now.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw a lot of different like season previews thinking that Everton would make top 4. And I think maybe that's because people have been sort of impressed by the variety of players that have brought in, that it has been like younger players who were linked with bigger clubs like Michael Keane. You've seen the Wayne Rooney acquisition.
Jordan Pickford, the goalkeeper, it's a huge signing.
And so I'm curious, do you think that's a little bit like hype, or do you think there is a chance that Everton are in contention for top 4 or higher?
I think it's hype because I think it seems like Everton are spending more than they usually do in terms of like signing Keane for 20 million something and Pickford for I think around 20 million as well.
I think Keane was 25, I believe.
But really, when you look at the way transfer fees have gone, with for example Arsenal paying 52 million pounds for Lacazette, and like Pogba last year was 89 million, and like I think like the big teams have spent crazy money, and then Everton have spent more money than usual, but it's all commensurate with what the fees were anyway.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What much the ratio is still the same, even though the numbers are bigger for Everton.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll also add, and this maybe is where I'll put my foot in my mouth potentially.
Yeah, go for it.
If the fees that have been discussed are true, I don't think that they should be trying to sign Gylfi Sigurdsson. I think he's a very good player.
Pounds? Yeah, exactly.
But like he went to Tottenham and did not do well and went right back. So like I don't know if he's worth 50 million. Even with the inflated fees that are going on right now.
But look how much money Everton have.
This is very true.
Right? They just sold Lukaku for £90 million to Manchester United. They've got
73.
They've got Premier League TV money. I'm sorry. Was it $90 million maybe? I might have seen.
Or I think it's like with like easily attainable add-ons.
Okay, yeah.
Something like that.
But with all that money coming in with the Premier League TV money, spending 50 on Gylfi is not that much.
I guess it's not. Yeah. It just seems like a lot still
also,
to me.
I really think Sigurdsson's an excellent player.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I just, basically with what we've been talking about, it doesn't seem like he is necessarily what Everton are missing. It seems like maybe there's a chance that they need a different type of striker to balance out an injured Wayne Rooney. I mean, really, it seems like they need a different type of attacker. Yeah. And I don't know. Gylfi Sigurdsson can hit a free kick and create options and open up channels. I just don't know if he's going to be that, like, picking up the slack goal scorer that you might need.
Well, think of it this way. He's going to be instead of Ross Barkley. So that is an upgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a weird thing to say, but yes, it is.
And I just hope Ross Barkley goes somewhere where he's appreciated.
All right.
I think they have to lower the asking fee, and he's going to have to lower maybe his opinion of himself. But I hope Ross Barkley goes somewhere and plays soccer.
So one more time, your Everton prediction.
Is that Wayne Rooney will score 10 goals and get 10 assists. Sub-prediction, he'll get an England recall. Bonus prediction, Ademola Lookman will be in contention for the Young Player of the Season.
All right. I love your sub and bonus predictions.
The categories I just invent when I want to say something.
I was going to say, well, I also feel like if we went back and did the total number of predictions we've made, I'm pretty sure you're beating me by about 50, because you tend to add on the bonus one.
Quantity, not quality.
That's one way to go with it. How's that worked out for Wolves so far? All right, moving on.
1-0 against Middlesbrough. It's going fine so far.
Moving on to Huddersfield, a place where Ross Barkley will never be playing, at least for Huddersfield.
But who knows?
I mean, he might be playing against them.
Yeah.
I would say it's not because Huddersfield don't have the caliber. I mean, they're in the Premier League. It's because of what they've done this season, which is so far in the window. They've signed 9 players.
I've just realised their style of play is not suited to Ross Barkley.
It's not. But so they've signed 9 players. They've been very active, and they were very active early. I think they identified exactly what they wanted to do and the type of players they wanted. And it seems like the type of players they wanted were capable understudies. That it's basically David Wagner is going to go with more or less the team he had in the championship.
Well, aren't 3 of the players he signed were the guys who were on loan last season?
Yes.
So they went all in on the try before you buy thing.
And then Danny Williams, the American midfielder, who did really, really well in the playoff game, in the playoff championship game.
So the last serious game they played, they signed the guy that they were impressed with.
Let's bring him in too. But it's been a lot of players who do not have Premier League experience, and that seems to have been almost an intentional decision. That you don't have those sort of Joey Barton's come in, or you know what I mean? It's the guys who have been there before and can give you a little bit of that pedigree. I forget where he is now. It's a championship club. But they haven't done that. They've basically, David Wagner has identified the players that he thinks will be able to play his sort of free-form attacking, high-pressure system.
It's basically Jurgen Klopp style.
Yeah. And so we'll get into more of why I think this is my prediction, but I think that Huddersfield are either going to stay up and be relatively safe in doing so, or they are going to go down in hilarious/historic fashion.
Wow. You mean they'll high press and teams will cut through them kind of thing?
I mean that he is not. I don't think he's going to change his approach, David Wagner. Excuse me. I made this decision that if I'm identifying him as American, and I think he actually does go with Wagner and not Wagner.
Okay.
I forget where I heard that. Maybe the Guardian Football Weekly. He's not going to change his approach.
New version or old version?
I believe the old version.
Okay.
So there you go. He's not going to change the approach. The owner has said no matter what happens, Wagner will not be fired.
I saw that.
If they get relegated, he's going to be the manager.
I love that. I love saying that because it won't be like someone asking the owner sort of in December when they're struggling, and then he'll be like, no, we're sticking with him. If they ask him in December, he can say, I told you in July. We are sticking with David.
Yeah, and that's great. But it also means that you could get into that sort of battle of principle of, no, I'm going to make this team do what I want them to do, even if we're getting destroyed in the league. Eventually, it will come good once everybody starts playing the right system. And maybe by the time they do come good, it could be problematic, or they could gel right away. Teams could underestimate them because they don't have Joey Barton. So we're going to roll them, and then teams lose.
The one thing I would say is, based on my understanding of Huddersfield, and I should say, full disclosure for listeners here, there was an hour today when I thought I was previewing Huddersfield, so I did some Huddersfield Town research.
Good stuff, Daryl.
I do know that they did some high press, but also some games he sent them out in the Championship last year to counter-attack.
Yeah.
So he has 2 looks.
He changes it.
Yeah, he changes it up. And I think it won't be just one... remember Roberto Martinez just had attacking, short passing kind of style, and that would often get him burned, right, for Wigan and for Everton, and it was he only had the one approach. I think David Wagner, it's a good thing that he has 2 ideas.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, that's a bold statement, Daryl. It's good to have 2 ideas on things. Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah.
It still is a little bit I just don't know what to make of the fact that he has sort of actively not gone after the kind of the veteran players, the ones who have that experience. You look at his goalkeeper, for example. I think it's going to be Jonas Lossi, who's on loan from Mainz in Germany. I think they lost the goalkeeper they had last season.
He was on loan from Liverpool. It was Ward.
Yeah,
and
there you go.
Liverpool did not loan him again.
It's almost like you've done the research as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just, and so it seems this guy from Germany.
But
why not?
I think what you're getting at, and I agree, is that they've prioritised the system over get him in. He's got Premier League experience, right? That is a fast track to sort of a disaster, and you have to bring in Neil Warnock or Steve Bruce or someone like that.
Yes,
and then you're on that merry-go-round of Premier League experience. Yeah.
So that's definitely a certain aspect of it. The other ones I would say is it's also where they've placed a lot of faith in players like Tom Ince, who we've talked about before.
Is he a new
signing? No, I think he was with them last season.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Tom Ince, yeah, I think they brought him in, actually. I could be wrong.
Summer signing.
Yes. I believe he was signed, this summer, £8 million, I think. I forget from where.
All right.
But
That's a small fee when we think about the other numbers we're talking about.
But I think you even 3 years ago made a prediction about him in the Premier League as he's going to double his career goals or whatever because he had 2 at the time.
You have a good memory for my bad predictions.
Well, it's just because I remember Tom Ince and I was like, oh yeah, oh no, because it is sort of he's had his chances. And I think if you want to take the optimistic route, he's a really exciting player who's got a lot of technical ability and a lot of flash, but does that translate? And maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does. And that's what I think Huddersfield's entire season is going to be. The other one to keep an eye on would be Mounier, however you want to pronounce that one. Yeah, he's going to be up top. Has been looking very good in preseason and seems adept in a variety of goal-scoring methods. So I think he is also going to be excited.
I'm going to say Mooney. I like to imagine Kyle Mooney up front for Huddersfield.
That should do it. They're equally athletically inclined. And then, as I mentioned before, Danny Williams.
Yes.
He will be playing with Aaron Moy.
Yes.
It'll be the two of them.
We spied Aaron Moy playing for Australia Confederations Cup. It looked really, really good. You'll see him like a shaved head in central midfield.
Yeah, and so the two of them, I think, are going to be locking down the kind of holding midfield, the defensive midfield spots for Huddersfield.
Can we talk about Danny Williams?
Sure.
Because a lot of US men's national team fans very excited about Danny Williams. I think people were just weirdly impressed that he was playing for Reading in the Championship. I'm going to be doubly impressed that he's playing for Huddersfield in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Bruce Arena has never really talked about him, but there's a chance that Danny Williams puts in some eye-catching performances, especially if this David Wagner high-pressing style comes off. Because the way I looked at it was it's a 4-2-3-1, right? They're all going to press, then it's going to be Moy and Williams, and they'll be picking up a lot of balls on turnovers. So Williams' stats may be excellent this season.
Yeah.
And there may be a lot of eye-catching stuff of him sort of winning the ball back up high, and it may get Bruce Arena's attention and US men's national team fans' attention.
You know what, I'm going to do it.
What's
Bonus
that?
prediction, Danny Williams gets called in for the September World Cup qualifiers.
Oh, yes!
And here, I have a theory on this one as well.
Aaron Moy will definitely get called in for Australia.
Yeah, there you go. Send the both of them. You don't want one stand back.
The best English-speaking, non-English midfield in the Premier League.
Sure. I'm not sure that's true. I mean, you're talking about native English speakers?
Yes.
There we go.
English is a first language.
That's a key distinction. But so I think part of that might be because, yes, he could perform well. He's playing in the Premier League. If they look good to start the season or Danny Williams looks good, it makes sense to call him in. But another might be that he moved in the summer, that maybe Bruce Arena was trying to stabilize things when he first came in. Then he was looking at that January camp as an opportunity, to get some MLS players.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, so Danny Williams can't be called up in January.
Yeah, and then when you go to the Gold Cup, he's just moved clubs, so maybe you want to give him that full preseason.
Well, also Gold Cup is mostly MLS players because of the weird timing of the Gold Cup.
Exactly, good point. So I just wonder if maybe it's also been a situation in which, but then you'd go back to he called an Eric Lehigh, but I think there it's Eric Lehigh is stable with his club.
It's because of the fullback disaster that's happening for the US national team, right?
So I just think maybe the circumstances have aligned to prevent Danny Williams from getting a call-up. And so I could almost see Bruce Arena, if Danny Williams has a decent start to the season, doing it almost as he was in there the whole time. I just didn't have a chance. That's sort of laid-back Bruce approach of hey, everybody's an option. I'm not ruling anybody out. He's going to sit on the bench and not play a minute. But yeah, he's in there. He's in with contention. So I'm going to say, Huddersfield either stay up and do so in relatively comfortable fashion or get relegated in relatively hilarious fashion. And prediction 2 is Danny Williams gets a call up to the September qualifiers.
Love it. Can I barge in on your Huddersfield prediction a little bit? Because there's one guy that really impressed me when I started doing that research.
I know who it is.
Who is it?
Is it Palmer?
No, it's not. But he could be interesting as well. He was another sort of loan last season, loan again this season from Chelsea, right? The right back, Tommy Smith, is also the captain. He got 10 assists from right back for Huddersfield last season.
So, you want to do a prediction, don't you?
You
have one written down, don't you?
No, actually, I genuinely don't. I just wrote down Tommy Smith just to remember to talk about him. So I honestly think he'll be someone who catches the eye for Huddersfield next season because he'll be getting forward, he'll be involved in that press, he'll probably be involved in some goals. I think people will be talking about Tommy Smith. I mean, he's 25 and captain of a Premier League team, and most people have never heard of him.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's not as though he's been playing in the Premier League for a very long time.
But that's what I'm saying, but now he will be, and it'll get people's attention.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know what I'm going to do as well? Our friend Pavlos, Huddersfield fan, I'm going to ask him about Tommy Smith, and I'll bet you he gives me a very excited response.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
Actually,
any Huddersfield player.
I actively avoided asking Pav questions because I figured
They're all the best.
Yeah, it's because when we talk to our friends who love clubs, it can go one of two ways. It's either the best, it's all going to be great, or it's looking in Albert Otadi's direction. It's going to be terrible.
Everyone's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, Pav's more of an optimist. I think.
That's true. I think. I don't know. Probably.
Who else we got left?
I believe it is your selection, Mr. Grove, and it's Leicester City.
Okay, Leicester City.
Would you like to know what you predicted?
No, but you're going to tell me anyway, aren't you?
I am, because I think I'm going to give you the point for it.
Okay.
Your prediction was that the absence of N'Golo Kante would be more of a problem than you thought. So it's
Whoa,
basically,
that's a great prediction.
Well, no, that's not quite the prediction.
Oh.
That was your initial comment, because heading into the Community Shield last season, Leicester, the champions, playing Man United, the FA Cup champions, you said, oh, it'll be fine. Like, they brought in some replacements. If anything, he wasn't the one that like they really needed to hold on to. So it's okay. After the Community Shield, you were like, oh no, this is going to be a problem. He was the one they needed to hold on to. So your prediction came from that, which was that because N'Golo Kante was gone, that Claudio Ranieri was going to try to find a way to replace him, and that would bring back the Tinkerman reputation.
Yes.
I did not Google to see if there were headlines about the Tinkerman
there were
returns,
loads.
but I'm going to assume there were, because that's basically what happened, right? He kept trying to change things.
Yeah.
Then,
he also had to, because he had Champions League to throw in as well.
Yeah,
right?
but it
so you've got to
was,
rotate the players around.
I think anytime a guy's reputation is, oh, he's the Tinkerman, he overthinks things and it gets him into trouble, and then he wins the title and then is fired the next season for trying to like change things a bit too much, I'm going to give you the point for that one.
All right, I'll take it. Points, he said, pointing at himself and in a Chris Hardwick voice.
Nicely done. So that means no Claudio Ranieri anymore, which means we get to look forward to Shakespeare.
Shakespeare is in charge and, turn things around towards the end of last season by going back to kind of what they did best, right? It was the very familiar 4-4-2 lineup with more or less the same players. I think Ndidi basically replaced N'Golo Kante in central midfield. What I would say this summer is that Craig Shakespeare or whoever is in charge of transfers at Leicester City, I feel like they've done a much better job.
Really?
Iheanacho is in.
Kelechi
Iheanacho, £25 million. I think he's 20 years old with a $50 million buyback clause. That's the deal that Man City got, which suggests that he's still rated very, very, very highly. Right?
Yeah.
So an Iheanacho-Jamie Vardy partnership, that is a lively front two. I like the looks of that.
It's funny because I guess it's been a while, maybe just because of the offseason, but also because he didn't feature much for City. I kind of have a hard time remembering like how fast Iheanacho is, or if it's going to be more of like Vardy's going to be doing all the running, Iheanacho will be the big man, kind of knocking the ball down, holding it up, and scoring the goals.
I haven't seen that much of him either. I think he's sort of more energetic than Okazaki, for example. But it's an extra striker to add up there, right?
And probably Slimani as well.
Yeah, and Musa is also there, but neither of those really worked out. So I think, and that may be one of the some of the signings that weren't so good last season. Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, Ndidi kind of helped out halfway through last season. Kind of
helped out.
No, he really sort of got it together and was sort of the dominant midfield presence. A player they signed in the off-season from Sevilla, Vicente Iborra, which I don't think that many people will be that familiar with, but he has this really sort of impressive playing style. He does like defensive midfielder work, but also just has the legs and the energy to go box to box. He's also super tall and like athletic and like strong in the air, wins loads of headers, and does that thing where he arrives late in the box and scores. He's a former centre forward converted to a midfielder. So here's my prediction. Vicente Iborra will win Player of the Month at some point, because
you mean Premier League Player of the Month?
Premier League Player of the Month, which is an official award. You get like a champagne and
I didn't know if you meant like Leicester City's Player.
Oh no, Premier League Player of the Month.
A bit easier.
Yeah. But essentially because he'll do a lot of that good work, running up and down, like charging up and down the field, putting in tackles, but he'll also arrive late and score a couple of goals, where he'll have like a run of games where he looks like the complete player, because he does all the all-action stuff and has a couple of goals to his name as well. People will be talking about him. Vicente Iborra, Player of the Month.
All right.
Other player we have to talk about. Riyad Mahrez.
Yes.
I hadn't mentioned him yet. The last thing, before I came here to the studio tonight, I Googled Riyad Mahrez transfer. Apparently, Leicester turned down a £35.1 million bid from Roma. And Mahrez was kind of like, I want to go to Roma, but until Leicester accept a bid, I'm just going to get my head down and play. So we're in a weird situation where he's saying the right things, but also definitely wants to leave. Which is not a good scenario, is it? I think I'd rather get rid of him and take the money than have someone who's not that motivated to be there.
Well, I mean, if he's going to keep his head down and just try to work, I think it makes sense. My confused face that I'm making, listeners, is more because that does not seem like a lot of money. Like with the amounts we've been talking about with some of these names.
Because it's not last year. Last year, it would have gone for a lot more, I think.
But I wonder if a big part of it is, though, I mean, he wrote a letter. That he posted a letter saying, like, goodbye. It's
like 6
time
weeks
for me
ago,
to leave.
right?
And, but I wonder if clubs sort of see that and they're like, okay. like he has said he wants to leave. Maybe 10 million less than we would otherwise offer.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I'm curious to see if Roma come back with like 45 million, and maybe if that does enough. enough for Leicester.
Oh, so Morris sort of hasn't helped himself.
Or Leicester, I would say, which is maybe why he's
move?
keeping his head down. I would speculate that maybe his agent or somebody within the club has said, hey, man, stop talking because you're not helping things. Say you're going to keep your head down, and then that will make people think that you're like even more of like a noble soldier, and then we can raise that price a bit.
Ixnay on the Orkte.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure he speaks big Latin. I was going to ask you before we move on about Leicester, what's going on with their defense? Because it was old last season, and I'm curious if it's gotten any younger.
They signed, if memory serves me correctly, it's not in my notes, I think they signed Harry Maguire from Hull City. Okay. So they did sign a younger centre-back.
Hull just got picked apart, didn't they?
Yeah, so it's Morgan and Huth, I believe, still there. But Harry Maguire, I might have to check his name after we record. I watched some highlights of him, and weirdly, I love a defensive highlight reel. He still looked a little clumsy in the defensive highlight. It was a lot of him sort of kind of like playing a ball in a non-convincing way or getting a head first to a ball, but it went off at a weird angle. But he did get there. So I'm not fully confident in Harry Maguire, so we'll see how that unfolds.
Does he have
I'm not fully confident that's his name. But
does he have any sort of lucrative liquor endorsement contract? He does not, or is that still just Wes Morgan?
Just Wes Morgan.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, we'll see what happens.
Did we talk about that on the show? I was not thrilled about it.
You were not. I was a little more okay with it. Although there's a couple where he has to like go into bars and pose as the captain. That's a little strange.
And say there's only one captain or something. He has to like say a Morgan's rum thing. And I was kind of thinking like, you're a Premier League winning captain. Have some self-respect. He's got enough money, right? He does not need to make extra money from a rum deal.
There's a Family Guy, I think, last season where Rob Gronkowski, the New England Patriots tight end, moves in across like next door, and everything he introduces them to, it's like, "This is my shower, sponsored by Sobe Life Water." Or it's like that, and then they ask him why he keeps doing that. He's like, "My agent said if I don't do it, I'll die." So like, I wonder if maybe that's what's happened with Wes Morgan. Is like, it's just sort of like, I just need sponsorships now. That's how it works. My agent said I had to do it.
So there you go. That's my Leicester City preview. The prediction was that Vicente Iborra will win Player of the Month at some point. But also, just keep an eye out for Vicente Iborra because I feel like it's one of those names that people, again, won't be that excited about going into the season, but maybe it's one you've heard about by November.
I also think maybe you've annoyed Kelechi Iheanacho because you started with him and I was like, oh, okay, we're going to have a prediction about him.
Well, same as you. I haven't seen enough of him to be certain that he's like going to be this all-star kind of guy, but I'm optimistic. Put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, with the optimism, I'm going to try to talk about Liverpool because I genuinely don't know what to make of this Liverpool team.
Really?
Yes.
I'm up on Liverpool, I think.
I think I am too, but I'm curious, basically. And I'll say this.
You certainly are curious.
I am a Manchester United fan. I don't think that bleeds into this because I have so many friends who are Liverpool fans that I I don't want them to be sad. I enjoy friendly rivalries. So I definitely am not like, I want Liverpool to be bad. There are question marks, and we will get to that.
What are the questions? Okay.
Well, one of the things that is not a question mark is Sadio Mane. I made the Liverpool prediction last season. My prediction was that he would be the Liverpool Players' Player of the Season.
Was he?
He was that and the Player of the Season for Liverpool as well. So he got both awards.
And there's no Africa Cup of Nations this year.
Not.
And I think, based on what I've seen, there's never going to be another Africa Cup of Nations in January. They moved the 2019 one to the summer, so that's no longer a concern.
There we go.
Yeah.
So we move to what Liverpool have done. One of the reasons why I'm slightly not even concerned, just curious about this team. So Jurgen Klopp basically identified 4 areas he wanted to improve. He wanted a new left back. They dealt with that. They signed Andy Robertson from Hull City. He wanted a new... that's what I was saying. They just got picked apart. A new wide attack, including their manager. New wide attacker.
Mohamed Salah.
There you go.
Yes.
But then he wanted a world-class midfielder to kind of boss that midfield, control things, hold it down. They've been trying to get Naby Keita. That has not worked. So, no Keita so far. Then they wanted another central defender. Enter the Virgil van Dijk fiasco where there's tapping up and there's reports to the Premier League. And
so what happened? Did Klopp talk to him?
I believe so.
And then Southampton were like, "You're not allowed to do that. We haven't accepted a bid." And now they're kind of not returning Liverpool phone calls.
Yeah, and
anything with the Liverpool area code, they just hang up.
Well, they've flat out rejected it. And I think Liverpool quit talking to them. They were sort of like, all right, sorry, we'll back off for a little while. I think they were sort of like, we recognize we made a mistake here. We didn't mean to. We'll pull back until things kind of like calm down.
We'll talk to you later.
And now they've come back. The problem for them is that in that time period, Man City, if you believe the rumors, are also in for Virgil van Dijk. And if you're Southampton, if you are really truly frustrated at Liverpool for trying to tap up your player, in come Man City, who maybe offer you a couple million more. Well, who cares? We'll sell them to them instead. And especially because Southampton maybe don't love having all of their players poached by Liverpool. So maybe there's that element to it as well.
All right, so I get why you're concerned about this. In some ways, I just respect Klopp for saying, like, these players will improve the team. It's either these players or I'll go with what I've got. You know what I mean? Like, there's a very specific thing he wants. If he doesn't get that, he's not going to go and sign some, like, knockoff version. Like, remember I posted the Jurassic City video the other day? Yeah. He's not going to go and sign the Jurassic City version of Naby Keita.
See, I disagree. Because I think, especially in the modern game, and especially with the Premier League being the way it is with the money it has, clubs are going to either demand insane amounts of money that you've got to be okay with spending, and I don't think Liverpool always are okay with spending insane amounts of money. And I think that also...
Keita would be record signing even at what they've bid so far, right?
I believe so. And so, on top of that, they're also, like, clubs aren't necessarily going to want to sell you a player. And if, as RB Leipzig have done, they said, no, you're not taking this player, we are keeping him for at least another year until his buyout clause comes in.
Buyout clause comes into effect next year, so Liverpool could wait a year and buy him then?
Yeah.
Why not be patient and buy him then?
Because it's a year away. You don't know what's going to happen.
You've got to play a whole year of football.
Yeah, and so I guess I just don't think that is as smart as saying, like, okay, here are the 3 players I want, and so you can, play the teams off of each other, you can talk to different people and try to get the price down, but to say this is the one guy, well, if that one guy doesn't come, then you're sort of like, okay, well, I said this was a huge problem area, and we had this one guy in mind, and now we didn't get him. So, Emre Can, can you do this? Maybe
it's like you anoint a messiah of midfield.
Yeah, and then he doesn't come. And then I think
you don't Brighton.
And I do want to talk about the positives with Liverpool, but then like center of defense, I think is still an issue. And if Van Dijk doesn't come, now he may still come, and that would really solve some problems and some answer some questions for me. But until he does, you kind of have the same problems you had last season. And I don't necessarily know if they can handle that, especially given that now they have Champions League to deal with.
The one thing I would say doesn't look good for Liverpool is this Adam Lallana injury, which is weird, right? It's a thigh injury, but he's out for a month or 2 months, like way longer than you would expect for a regular thigh injury. I'm not exactly sure what the exact injury is, but I always thought Lallana was a super important player for them. Performs that pressing duty so well, and then he's kind of nice and skillful on the ball. Probably one of my favourite English players. I think. He won't be there to start the season.
He will not. But Liverpool, I think, have quietly or not, assembled an amazing group of talented players. Because you've got Lallana, you've got Wijnaldum, Henderson, Emre Can, as I mentioned. Then looking forward, it's kind of ridiculous. You've got Mohamed Salah, as I mentioned. Dom Solanke has come in from Chelsea.
I love Dom Solanke. Yep. I'm thinking this is not a great move for him when you read off the rest of this list.
Yeah. You've got Coutinho, Mane, Firmino, Sturridge, Origi, Danny Ings. So you've got a ridiculous amount of attacking talent there. So I think basically Liverpool are going to be stacked offensively, might still struggle to break down kind of like compact defenses. But then I just wonder, like, if their defense and the center midfield is going to be strong enough. If they do get some injuries, they're going to...
James Milner back into midfield. Maybe with signing Robertson, we can get James Milner back into midfield. I mean, I'm up for that.
It's a decent possibility. So, my specific prediction is that they will have one absurd scoreline sometime in the first 2 months. And I mean like 6-4 or 5-3 or 4-4. Because it's going to be this just like goal, and then they concede a goal, and then another goal, and then they concede another goal.
One of those like Premier League all-time classic games.
Yeah.
You know the current one that they always, if they can only choose one game to air, they'll go Liverpool 4, Newcastle 3. From the Kevin Keegan era,
That's a good one.
With, I think, Stan Collymore.
I would have bet on a Newcastle game. I would have gone Arsenal 4, Newcastle 4. That was what I thought you were going to say.
Is that the Arshavin game? Oh, no, that was a Spurs game.
I think that was Czech Kyoto, or maybe, I forget who it was.
Yes, it was. It was Czech Kyoto,
yeah. R.I.P. I forgot about that, and now I'm sad. Let's talk about Liverpool, shall we? So I just, it's like they've got these like really, really exciting players going forward. Then there's the kind of gaps in the midfield and defense. And then it's a weird thing, and I talked to you about this off air, but there was the video today of Jurgen Klopp. It was just a quick gif of him like screaming at his team, and it ends in an obscenity. But it's basically, play freaking football is what he screams. And also adds, like, it's August now, it's too late for these mistakes. And it's just sort of like, on the one hand, you could take that as like, oh, it's Jurgen Klopp being Jurgen Klopp. He's being outspoken. He's yelling at his players. He's motivating them. But on the other hand, it might just be like, oh no, it's August and we're still making these mistakes.
The thing you haven't mentioned is there are strong rumours of Barcelona after Coutinho. Yep. We also had, I really apologise, someone tweeted at us today and said that there was something like an injury list, and the injury listed that kept Coutinho out was bad back, which is usually code for like unspecified injury that probably isn't real, but keeps him out because he's moving.
It's basically...
Because he's possibly lying about it because you can't test for it, right?
It's like, you could just say my back hurts, and then there's like not one specific thing. If you say my thigh muscle hurts, they will check your thigh muscle. And then I think a couple of...
and sorry, the reason I couldn't name the person who sent that tweet to us is because of our self-imposed Twitter embargo because of Game of Thrones spoilers.
So... I think Spanish outlets are reporting that it's going to happen, that he said he wants to move. But, of course, Spanish outlets have a vested interest in him moving.
Especially after losing Neymar, they have a vested interest in sort of making sure that Real and Barcelona, and in this case Barcelona, are seen as buying clubs again.
Yeah. So no reports out of Portugal, and I think no inside sources from Liverpool saying anything. So
Portugal?
Excuse me, Brazil. No Portuguese, Portuguese speaking outlets.
You.
I apologize. Yes, no Brazilian, and that's tends to be the way it goes. Like if you look at that Neymar transfer. Yes, obviously Spanish papers are reporting it, but it tended to be Brazilian sources or sources close to Neymar's camp that kind of started leaking things and making that rumor known.
So I'm going to say this. I understand your Liverpool concerns. I really do. But I also think Klopp seems to have there seems to be progress in this team playing that Jurgen Klopp pressing style. And there's still till the end of September to go for him to make some signings.
See, but I think and that's the key thing. I think that's we're recording this now. It will depend on how the rest of the window goes. But I want to go back to, and it's a point that the set pieces made a very good, compelling argument.
Ian McIntosh's
which is basically that they fatigued hard by the end of last season. That team, because of the way they play, right?
That's not a verb, but okay.
But you know what I mean? Basically, you could see it in the team, in the system, in the injuries that arose.
Yeah.
That was playing 47 matches. They only played 15 after February.
Oh, the Champions League now, right? Yeah.
Now they have Champions League where if they even make it to the group stage, because they finished fourth, they have to do the qualifier. If they make it to the group stage and get immediately knocked out of both domestic cups, they will still play more than 47 matches already. So you look at that team, and it's just moments.
You're panicking Liverpool fans right now.
I know, and I'm not trying to, because I still think there's a chance that they win the league.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a chance that they finish 8th, and it's just a weird. Right now, I just do not know what to make of them. I have faith in Jurgen Klopp, and I have faith in a lot of their players because they have so many players that. When the Man United Liverpool play each other, I'm going to be like, oh no, that guy. Oh no, that guy. Oh no, that guy.
Actually, Emre Can is one of those guys.
Yep.
I feel like he didn't
100%.
play all that much last year. I may have that wrong, but I got a feeling he wasn't always in the starting 11.
Yep.
Maybe with more of a midfield shortage, he may get his run in the team.
Yeah.
And we'll all be like, oh, Emre Can.
I mean, they have a list of that guy that sort of extends for a while. And so they definitely have the talent there. They have the manager there. I think the fans are behind them. You don't have a lot of the drama you've had, and you don't have. Well, you didn't have a lot of the drama about players leaving. We'll see what happens with Coutinho.
Yeah, that's going to be a developing story. Okay, that is the first 10 teams in our Premier League very specific prediction show. We'll be back within the next 48 hours. We're not quite sure on the scheduling yet. And we'll kick off with, I believe, Manchester City is next, all the way through to Zebra Football Club. I can't remember what the last alphabetical is, but we'll do the final 10 teams.
Zebra Football Club.
On the next episode.
Final segment before we get going, Mr. Grove?
Well, actually, before we go to the Scouting Network, we have to talk about what's going on with NBC Sports this year. Because a few people have asked us on Twitter, what is this thing I've been hearing about? We went and did the research, and we have the answer.
Right. So to give the background, the issue is essentially that it used to be games are on NBC Sports, but if you can't catch them there, they're streaming, they're available online. If you can't, if the game doesn't make the TV cut or any of the NBC affiliated channels, you can still find it online.
On the NBC Sports website.
Yeah.
Okay, what's happened this year is those games that are not televised on NBC Sports, on NBC, on CNBC, or sometimes like Universal, whatever they're screening, the ones that are online, you now have to pay $49.99, which is a clever way of saying $50. You pay $50 for the Premier League pass at a website called NBC Sports Gold. So it's like a next tier to make sure you have the complete Premier League package. That's how it works. So it's a third of games, but the big games, I looked at the opening game of the season, right? Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, I think Man City, all the big teams are going to be on TV. If you want the complete Premier League schedule, you pay just $50 for the entire season. So I kind of get why people are annoyed because they used to have everything in one place and now there's this extra thing. But it was almost too good of a deal to begin with to have every Premier League game. No one else in the world gets that in one TV subscription.
Oh, yeah, I know. And I think it's like NBC Sports maybe are... I bet they're wishing that they had maybe planned this rollout a little bit more. And I was like, just so you know, 3 years from now, we're probably going to start charging you for this content.
Yeah, they maybe should have warned people ahead of time.
Yeah. And you're right that $50 isn't that much. I think it's just it does come down to
for 130 games.
Yeah, true. But I am a cord cutter, and I think maybe this is where you have to kind of balance things, and you just can't have everything you want all the time. But it is sort of it makes it more difficult because now it's not I can go to this one website and the games are all there.
Yeah.
Now it's now I have to stream this channel on DirecTV Now, which is what I use to because otherwise this game won't be available online, but then this one is, but it's not online. It's going to be more of a headache. Yeah. And so I think for people who are trying to go about saving some money, by that approach,
Yeah.
it is probably more frustrating. But again, that's probably what happens when you're trying to do that.
So I hope we've explained that so everybody understands it. If not, maybe email us and we'll explain some more.
Yeah, but I think it is worth reiterating what you just said, though, that like we do kind of have a very favorable setup, and we have had a very favorable setup where we can watch all the games, and that really isn't the case in England.
Yeah, for example, in England, you've got Sky Sports, you have to pay for that package. Then you've got BT Sports, which is a whole other channel, you have to pay for that. And even then, you don't have all the games because some are blacked out because it's a 3 p.m. kickoff. The 10 a.m. games here are 3 p.m. kickoffs. Those are never allowed to be televised. So like, not all games are on TV, and you have to buy 2 separate cable subscriptions with the premium package for Sky Sports and the premium package for BT Sports. So the deal we've had for the last 3 years, where Embassy Sports gave you everything possible, right? Every single game for one subscription was incredible. And I kind of think it was we're going to make the Premier League as big as it can be 3-year deal. And now's the time when they sort of have established it as much as they can. And now it's kind of, they're starting to charge a little more to have the complete package, which I actually think is fair. Because if you're sort of super into the Premier League, then you probably will pay $50 if you're one of those people that wants to watch every game. But my guess is the majority of people who are kind of casual watchers will just be quite happy with still probably like 6 or 7 games on every weekend. So you can still watch the Premier League without it.
You can. You know what else you can do?
The completists only. There we go.
Do you know what else you can do, Dale Grove?
What's that?
You can send us scouting reports if you've joined the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
But only if one person did send us without scouting. We bin those.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have many scouting reports to get to from the Scouting Network.
Yeah.
We have some of them today, more of them tomorrow. Up first, Dale Grove.
Okay, it's Scott Glatch is scouting George Acosta, the 17-year-old for North Carolina FC. Scott says Acosta was called into the U17 training camp in Atlanta and has been signed by the NASL's North Carolina FC. Played a few games with their PDL outfit before subbing on for the senior team in the 89th minute of their friendly with Swansea City. Yeah, he's going to be on that U17 national team, I'm pretty certain as well. He's a key midfielder.
I would bet so. Up next, Kirsten Mladinha scouting Brian Mbolo, the 20-year-old Swiss forward for Schalke. After 284 days sidelined by injury, Brian Mbolo is finally back and got to play the second half of a Schalke friendly against Azerbaijani side FK Neftchi. Sure. Right. He didn't score or assist, but just seeing him back on the pitch was exciting.
Gillian Avalon is scouting Ronan Hale, the 18-year-old forward for Birmingham City. Birmingham's U23s played the Wolves U23s, and Blues won 3-2, in a closed-doors friendly. Baby Ronan played the first half and converted a penalty. P.S. Still no loan news on Baby Jack.
He's still punching advertised boarding somewhere, I'm sure. Next, Colin Bish scouting Eric Williamson, the 20-year-old American for the University of Maryland. Colin ended his email with, in all caps, "Do something interesting, Eric." So that kind of tells you that not much has been going on. Will Parchman included Williamson in a list of 5 players worth contracts. It's an interesting title. But that's about it this summer for Eric.
I think he's DC United possible. As in, I think they could have a claim on him if they wanted to. And they're short of midfielders, so maybe he is worth a contract with DC.
Oh, DC.
Yeah. Mark Vinegray is scouting Andrei Ivan, the 20-year-old for Krasnodar. After what seemed like forever, Mark says, I finally got a Google alert for Andrei. He was sold by University Craiova in Romania for €4 million to FC Krasnodar on July 17th. On Krasnodar, one of those money-spending teams. Since Krasnodar are in the Europa League and Ivan has been named to the matchday squad for their qualifying round games, I have to have many, many more reports for you in the future. I hope to have many more reports for you in the future. I just hope he doesn't go the way of Anthony Martial and go to one of my no-no teams. So Mark asked for any player except a Man United player.
Yep.
We gave him Martial, and then 3 months later, Martial transferred to Manchester United.
Our bad.
Maybe just stick with it and he'll get transferred out.
Yes. Quick question for you.
Kidding.
What is a money-spending club? Aren't all clubs money-spending clubs?
Well, no, but
what do you mean by that?
Some of them are sort of moneyed and go around signing. I feel like Krasnodar is one of those teams I've heard of that sort of, one of those Eastern European rich clubs.
I think they prey on smaller clubs. In the Russian league, I think is what they tend to do. I'm not sure they're one of the money clubs like Anzhi or
I see, okay.
Dinamo, I think.
That is what I meant. I thought Zenit or Anzhi.
Zenit, would be the other obvious one. Yeah. Matthew Potter. First of all, apologies to Matthew Potter. I think I called him Matthew Porter last time, so apologies there. Scouting Ethan Horvath, a 22-year-old American goalkeeper for Club Brugge. Horvath has started in the last 3 matches for Club Brugge, 2 in the Champions League qualification round and 1 in the Jubilee League. He conceded 5 goals in the 2 Champions League matches against Istanbul Başakşehir, or BB, with Bruges losing 5-3 on aggregate. He's fared better in their domestic league competition, keeping a clean sheet in their 4-0 victory over Lokeren on July 29th.
All right, Ethan, see you at the World Cup. Tim Catcher is scouting Adam Armstrong, the 20-year-old, for Bolton on loan from Newcastle. Some Newcastle fans were hoping that Armstrong might remain with Newcastle for their return to the Premier League, but he's instead been sent on loan to Bolton in the Championship. He actually already has 15 Premier League appearances from his 2 seasons with Newcastle in 2013 and 2014. He spent the 2016 season on loan at League One Coventry City and the 2017 campaign on loan at Barnsley, where he scored their goal of the year. Yeah, he keeps on scoring. Do you know about Bolton?
I mean, I've heard of them.
Bolton have some real financial pressure. They are not allowed to spend more than £4,500 per week on any new players.
Wow.
They're not allowed to pay for loans. So getting someone like Adam Armstrong is a big deal for Bolton because presumably they got him with no fee and probably Newcastle are covering his wages.
And I think they were promoted, right? Weren't they in League One last year?
They're in the Championship this year.
Yeah.
I know that. But they are in serious financial trouble. They're not allowed to spend any money.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about happier things.
Okay.
James Jones scouting Andrew Carlton, 17-year-old American midfielder for Atlanta United. Carlton joined teammate Chris Goslin in the MLS homegrown game against the Chivas U20s. Andrew played for about an hour and swapped wings with Brooks Lennon a few times, nearly scoring 2 goals.
I haven't seen that homegrown game. I really want to see it now. If Brooks Lennon and Andrew Carlton are swapping wings, that's kind of...
Do you want to watch that or Game of Thrones after this?
Game of Thrones
okay.
after this. Lewis Graff is scouting Joshua... I mean, I like it, but not...
Yeah, I'm with you.
Lewis Graff, who emailed us the other night. Thank you, Lewis Graff. Scouting Joshua Kimmich, the 22-year-old German defender for Bayern Munich. Kimmich started for Bayern in their 5-4 penalty win over Dortmund. He started at right back, which is where he will probably play the whole season, and played superbly. All right, Kimmich's got himself a position. It's good news, it's good news. He was amazing going down the right flank and got the assist for Bayern's first goal. A beautifully placed cross to the feet of Lewandowski. He nearly got a second when he crossed to Thomas Muller, who hit the post. Finally, late in the game, he scored, kinda. It was a deflected scoop that hit a few people before going in. Unfortunately, he then missed his penalty in the shootout.
But Bayern won anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
If you're a Bayern fan. If you're a Dortmund fan, it's kind of a bummer.
Is this the game where Christian Pulisic got a goal?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think he tackled a defender, Javi Martinez. He dispossessed Javi Martinez, then charged at the goalkeeper and scored. Was it Manuel Neuer in goal?
Calm little finish. I don't know if it was, but I'm choosing to believe that it was. Because I like the idea of Christian Pulisic like going 1v1, looking into Neuer's eyes, and then beating him.
I like the idea of Joshua Kimmich being the sort of solid right back, that's your position all season.
Yep.
New Philipp Lahm.
I mean, I'm sure he would take that.
Yeah.
I'm sure most Germans would take that.
Thank you to Lewis. But thank you to Scott, to Kirsten, to Gillian, to Colin, to Mark, to Matthew, to Tim, to James, and to Lewis again. And thank you, Taylor Rockwell, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. If you would like to support the Total Soccer Show and join the Scouting Network, please do. It helps us out. Go to totalsoccershow.com/join. The link will be in the show notes.
It will.
Until next time, thank you for listening. We'll be back with the second part of our Premier League preview, very specific predictions, very soon.